Hi, this video tutorial is to fill you in on the basics of the nervous system. The nervous system is made up of one main type of cell. There's other cells, but for now we're just going to focus on the main type, and that is the neuron. And the neuron can be seen right here. Here's a neuron, and here's a neuron. And what you should know is this part of the neuron right here is just like any other cell. On this diagram you can see that there's a nucleus, there's an endoplasmic reticulum, there's mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, all those other organelles, and everything you know about a cell is still happening there. But what's a little different are these structures sticking out right here, this part and that part. And what these are called are dendrites. This part right here is called an axon, and then these are axon tips. And what makes this a little different than other types of cells is that it can send a message. It can get a message, it can receive a message here into these dendrites, and then it can send that message down through the axon and out the axon tips. And if you look in this diagram over here, you'll see this one neuron that is in color, but you also notice that as you follow the axon to the axon tips in the background, there's dendrites of another neuron, and it can keep sending the message. And sure enough, here's axon tips coming from another neuron. So they would send a message this way. It would go through the axon to the axon tips, where it could then send the message on to another neuron, and it could go down that axon over there in the background. It goes behind this diagram to here, and then maybe down that way, who knows. And these messages are in the form of an electrochemical message. So many neurons can connect to one, and then it can send a message and it can connect to many others. As far as neurons go, there's two main types. There's sensory neurons and motor neurons. So sensory neurons send messages from outside or the body or your environment, and such as your skin here, and they send a message in, and then that can go to the brain or the spinal cord, and then motor neurons send a message back to muscles so that you can move or have some motor response. So remember, the message coming in is coming through sensory neurons, and then the message going back is going through motor neurons. Now the nervous system is divided into a whole bunch of parts, and the first two are the central nervous system and the peripheral, and these are really the physical differences in the nervous system. So over here in this diagram we have the central nervous system, which includes the brain and the spinal cord. So you've got the brain right here and the spinal cord running down through the vertebra, and that's the central nervous system, and it's in the center of the body. The peripheral nervous system are all the neurons coming off of the central nervous system. So they're out to the periphery or peripheral of the central nervous system. And these include all the motor and sensory neurons. Now the peripheral nervous system can get divided up even further. So there's motor neurons and sensory neurons like we talked about. And remember, sensory neurons, they send messages back to the central nervous system if you follow these arrows. And motor neurons send messages from the central nervous system or the spinal cord out to the body, and that can go to two different parts. That gets divided up even more. The somatic nervous system goes to voluntary muscles. Now if you remember the skeletal muscle system, if you think about muscles, there's three kinds. There's cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. Skeletal or voluntary, and the somatic nervous system connects with voluntary muscles or most skeletal muscles. It also connects with the autonomic nervous system, and this is connecting to cardiac and smooth muscles. So these are things that are involuntary that you can't control. And then the autonomic nervous system gets even further divided into the sympathetic and parasympathetic. And I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but if you've ever been scared and felt an adrenaline rush, that was your sympathetic nervous system working, and that prepares you for a fight or flight circumstance, and that's to prepare you if you have to either run or fight some type of predator. The parasympathetic division is the opposite. This is when there's no danger, you're completely at rest. And I guess the one big difference here is with the sympathetic division, for fight or flight, your heart rate's going to go up, your respiratory rate's going up. It's trying to get more sugar and oxygen to your muscles. You're getting ready to do something. And this also shuts down blood flow to certain parts of your body, such as your digestive system. Your parasympathetic does the opposite. Your heart rate and respiratory rate will slow down, more blood will flow to your digestive system, and you're more relaxed. But once again, this is part of your autonomic. You can't control this. So that's a brief overview of the nervous system. Remember, the main thing is the nervous system is made up of these little guys. It's called a neuron. And neurons can send messages this way. It's an electrochemical message. It can go in through the dendrites. It goes right through the axon and out the axon tip. And if they are sending messages from the brain out to motors or out to muscles, they're called motor neurons. And if they're sending messages from your skin or any other sensory organ, such as your eyes, ears, nose, back to the brain, then they're called sensory neurons.